going along Clarity Street. As that street is constructed, the ditch that is located on Clarity Street would go away, and most likely those shrubs would have to be relocated. So only shrubs are shown in that area. Drainage and stormwater. A stormwater plan was submitted to the city engineer for review. The applicant is proposing 2 rain gardens. The rain garden located in the northwest corner of the site, that would be temporary. And when that access drive in that area is removed, that rain garden would shift over. The rain garden is currently proposed in a future right-of-way of Clarity Street, so it would have to be moved. The applicant is aware of that and understands that they'll have to relocate that in the future. Photometric plan was submitted, and it does conform to the zoning requirements. Architecturally, the building they're proposing contains brick, metal, hardy plank, split face CMU, and ephes. Windows are provided on the street front facing Liberty Drive and also on the north and south elevations. They've also revised the actual site plan itself. At the last meeting, it was one long, we'll call it straight rectangle. The front of the building now does have some articulation to it and does go in and out in an effort to break up the building and reduce the scale of it. Staff is comfortable with what they're doing there. It provides a different look to it. It's not just a straight wall. It breaks up the parking better, and we're comfortable with how the building has been redesigned. The back side of the building will contain one recessed truck loading dock and also overhead doors. Staff does not have any concerns with that. That side of the project is intended to be an industrial area with your more traditional industrial looking buildings. This was always planned as a flex space within the development. So we think it does conform to what was the initial intention of the project. So with that, staff recommends the Plan Commission approve the site plan for the proposed 30,000 square foot multi-tenant building located at Lot 25 in Liberty Business Park.
Mr. Horsfall?
Adam, so when that temporary entrance gets removed, does the city pay for that? Does the owner?
He'll be the developer.
Is that a developer agreement that everybody knows about, or is it, is it just Bob saying, for sure, we're not gonna pay for it? So.
It's been raised a few times in multiple emails, and
Okay.
if you want, you could make that as a condition of approval if you want, if you want more certainty. But
No, if you're comfortable with it.
I'm comfortable. The developer's well aware of it as well, so I think we're okay.
Is the developer here this evening that would?
Hi, my name is Mike Green. I'm here representing the developer Liberty.
Are there any other? Mr. Heinzen?
Sure, I'm curious, what's the anticipation for Clarity Street to be constructed? If any?
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, at this point, there is not a specific time frame for that. I think it's dependent on the pacing of development within the project.
So I guess I have one question then, with regard to the semi-traffic that would be coming through here. I would presume that once Clarity Street is constructed, then most of that truck travel would come in through the driveway off of Clarity Street. But until that point, it would be, I guess, coming on off of, it would have to be coming in out of the cul-de-sac. Do we have to be concerned that there's going to be such significant amount of retail that to have the trucks driving through there is going to cause some safety problems?
I don't believe so. First of all, you're limited by the amount of retail that can be in there because of the suburban industrial zoning as it is. So I think it's all going to be self-contained within that building.
Okay.
Any other comment? Mr. Linder?
So the side buildings are going to have separate tenants than the front buildings, is that correct? Or separate customer entrances?
Yeah, each unit will have its own entrance and rear entrance too, correct?
Okay. We don't know the tenant sizes on all of them yet. We do have some LOIs on it, but we have to figure out the spacing for each unit on doors.
I guess you know, just talking about the traffic flow, I bring up the issue of safety. You're gonna have people, they would gotta park, or they're gonna get the customer right in the upper left-hand corner, I guess that'd be the southwest corner. Then they gotta come all the way around either front or the back through the truck area out to the exit. I don't know, it doesn't seem like the ideal traffic flow for the building. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that, but it just, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of traffic going through there, you're not, I mean, if you're retail, people are gonna be coming and going all day, and they're gonna be, people are trying to back out of their spots, and people are gonna be zipping around all the way to the back.
Again, just on the one side, the in and out at the right, we had that widened by around for 40 feet for a truck to get in through and out, and that's basically the truck traffic going back and coming out the front side until Clarity Street gets built. Then all the truck traffic will come out on Clarity Street, come forward and back in and leave on Clarity Street. But until that point happens,
But that's also where your other cars are gonna have to exit too, if they're not
they'll
right
come
out.
in, right out, and then also on Clarity will be a secondary exit too.
Right, so you're gonna have
And
left turn traffic.
Correct. There'll be two ways in and out, yep. Either go right, or you go out the backside of Clarity and you go right or left.
Right,
Correct.
correct.
And just,
Mr. Heinzen?
sure, if I can just follow up on that, which is a driveway that you widened? Just to make sure I see where we're talking about.
Right out.
Right.
We went to Ron and got approval to widen that up to 40 feet just because of semi. We don't want to take out the landscaping in the corner like they normally do. So we got that taken care of at this point.
Which is to address the right in,
Yes,
correct?
right in.
Okay.
Because it's-
Because you wouldn't anticipate any truck traffic leaving from that same driveway?
No, at
Yeah,
that point now, we
okay.
just have it coming into Clarity Street, and then we'll have Clarity Street will be pretty much the entrance and exit of truck traffic.
Okay.
Mr. Linder?
And then so until Clarity Street gets built, the trucks are gonna have to come around to the right side here, and they're gonna have to go by the short, by that narrow section where the exit will be to Clarity Street, but temporarily they will.
Temporarily until
And
Clarity
that's
gets built.
big enough turn spot
Yep.
for them with the parking
there-
spots right there.
There is no medium there, so we can turn them out either way on that one.
Says there's a sidewalk there.
Correct.
Is there a sidewalk there?
No, there's a bike trail through there, I do believe.
It says concrete sidewalk.
It's approach.
I don't know. I'm just looking at this one here, and it looks like it comes all the way here.
Mr. Gunlock?
I put turning radiuses on this, and a semi can get through there on the pavement with the trailer not going over that sidewalk. I mean, it's tight, but they can do it. In the same way, I put the turning radiuses on the 40-foot driveway, and a semi can get in there. I put turning radiuses on the cul-de-sac where the temporary driveway out, and they can come out there and turn and go back south on Liberty Drive.
Mr. Linder?
What other traffic patterns have you guys thought about before you came up with this? Exits, entrances?
Well, obviously, we had an issue of one, and right now, at this point, we only have one dock scheduled for this at this point for one loading, for one truck. We looked at as many as having 3 to 4 at least, so that's when we came in, but with Clarity not being built at this time, they've limited us our access a little bit off and on until the other buildings go to the south of it. Then hopefully we're gonna tie Clarity to that, and all the parking lots will tie to all the existing new buildings going down towards, I can't remember the street over here. Laser Street. And that would be the truck traffic going directly straight through from Liberty or Clarity to Laser. It could almost go right through there and also up to Liberty on the back side of the buildings, which is all tied together as one big development.
It's gonna be the access back to the east then?
Yeah, they go to Laser.
Parking lot?
Mhm.
Okay.
We had a plan there with 3 buildings on it at one time when we first came in the first meeting. That was the goal at the end, to have all the parking lots tied together, so the truck traffic would stay behind the buildings.
That's still the plan?
That's still the plan.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Horsfall?
This doesn't go to the.
No.
At this time, I'd like to recommend the approval of the site plans for the proposed 30,000 square foot multi-tenant building located at lot number 25 on Liberty Business Park.
And seconded? All right, is there any,
Just one yeah.
30,000?
What did I say?
3.
You sure it's only 30? Sorry. 30,000. I misspoke.
all right, so there is a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that site plan has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is discussion and possible action regarding a site plan review for Ag Source to construct a 13,216 square foot building located at 710 East Verona Avenue. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. Ag Source is proposing to construct this building on East Verona Avenue. Currently, they are located at 135 Enterprise Drive, and they would relocate their facility to this location. This did receive an initial review before the Plan Commission in August, and there was discussion about the overall master planning, the architecture, and access to the site. From a bulk standpoint, the building will be set back in the farthest northeast corner of the property. It does conform to all the setbacks, front, rear, and side. The building would be 21 feet tall. The maximum height in the district is 45 feet with a minimum of 20 feet because it is located within the downtown overlay district. So it does conform to all the setback requirements. Access to the site would be from a right in, right out of Verona Avenue. This would be currently it would be a private drive that would extend to the back here. There would be a loading dock on the west side of the building for the semi-traffic for Ag Source. The access drive would then extend to the east through the county facility and out to Verona Avenue, where it would have access to a full intersection where people can make left and right turns. The applicant is currently working with the county on an agreement to extend the roadway or kind of connect it to the county facility. There was a previous agreement that was approved in 2008, and it's my understanding that it's expired, and they have to go back to the county and just have it renewed. So they are working with the county on that item. One item to note is that as the rest of the site develops, when the applicant was here last time, they showed possibly 4 different lots in the area. Staff will require this access drive to become an actual right-of-way through the property. And our intention is to have this right-of-way come in, then curve to the west, and then end at the property line with the Farm and Fleet parcel. And once that Farm and Fleet parcel were to be developed, it'd also become right-of-way and would connect into Hometown Circle and give people access to an actual traffic signal. And when that would occur, this access point through the county facility would go away. So as projects come forward on this property, that will be required by a CSM to dedicate some land to the city for this public right-of-way. So staff encourages the applicant when constructing that driveway to construct it as it were a city road, so that it doesn't have to be ripped up again in the future. Parking, Ag Source requires 45 parking spaces. They're proposing 49, so it does meet the code requirements. They're also showing 6 bicycle stalls with a connection to the bike path, so that should help alleviate any parking concerns in the area. The building requires 712 landscaping points. The proposed landscaping plan provides approximately 1,400 landscaping points. Of note in the landscaping plan is that they're proposing some headlight screening to screen headlights from the county facility to the east. So staff does appreciate that as well. Drainage and stormwater. Stormwater plans were provided for the city engineer to review. The city engineer is actually still in the process of reviewing those plans, and one of the conditions of approval would be that prior to issuance of permits, the city engineer shall review and approve erosion control plan and stormwater plan for this property. Photometric plan was submitted and does conform to the zoning requirements. The building itself, the applicants have added a significant amount of brick to the first level on both the south, east, and west elevations. The materials proposed are metal panels, a metal roof, a split face block, and then concrete panels by the front door. In addition, one nice improvement to the site is they have also removed the rooftop mechanicals from the actual roof itself to better, lessen the visual impact of the actual the look of that. And those have been relocated to the area around the loading dock next to the dumpster enclosure. One of my items to note is that there are some unpaid taxes on the property. There is no ordinance that would prohibit any action on that tonight, and the applicant is aware of that, and as a condition of working with the banks, those will be repaid, but staff wanted to at least make the Plan Commission aware of that to let you know what's going on. So with that, staff does recommend the Plan Commission approve the proposed 13,216 square foot office building located at 710 East Verona Avenue with the following conditions. 1, Dane County must indicate to the city that it approves the details related to the design, payment, and long-term maintenance of the driveway to the east. That's the driveway through the county property. 2, Dane County must approve any grading and infrastructure that will impact the county property to the east. 3, Dane County must approve the pathway connecting to the bike path. And 4, prior to the issuance of building permits, the city engineer shall review and approve an erosion control plan and stormwater plan.
Mr. Heinzen.
I have a question for Mr. Sayre or other members of the Plan Commission, but at one time within the last 2 years, was a restaurant proposed for this site? Am I correct in that?
You are correct in that. Murphy's Restaurant was proposed. It'd be in the southeast corner of this site. Their conditional use permit was issued for it, but the project did not move forward because of, my understanding is financing for the restaurant operator.
And do we have any anticipation that that could still move forward, or is that basically dead?
I think the Murphy's one is probably dead. There have been some discussions of possibly another restaurant on the opposite side of that road, on the west side there, but those I think are still in the works and have not been finalized yet.
Mr. Horsfall?
I guess, what are the thoughts with having it be a private drive versus the city just taking care of it now?
The thoughts behind that, that's been discussed a lot too, and the reality from a city standpoint is that we've done private drives in the past, and the issue that we run into is that they deteriorate and they just aren't maintained, and then usually the city gets phone calls of, why aren't you maintaining this roadway? The reason we're recommending it right away in this is due to the potential we see as the volume of traffic coming through here. I mean, you have potentially possibly one restaurant in the front of the project, another retail area in the front of the project as well, and then you'll have egg source in the back, and at one point they possibly showed a hotel or possibly some retail in the back as well too. We envision this probably having a good deal of traffic coming through it. Private drives could be appropriate in lower, less traffic traveled areas, but I think in this one, the fact that people are going to want to get out to that lighted intersection to make that left turn on the Road Avenue, I think it's required. I think, I know Bob and I have talked, and so have Ron Reeder, and I think all three of us have come to the conclusion that a right-of-way is necessary for this parcel.
But from what I understand, initially it's going to be private drive. So why don't we just make it city now and not have to worry about it not being up to the standards of the city? Or did I misinterpret that?
Our intention is, right now we have the one user coming in, so we want to focus on the one user. If those other projects come forward, hopefully it's going to be sooner than later, but it could be who knows how long. Could it happen right now? I mean, the city could ask for that right now. I just don't know if it's appropriate if we don't know when those projects are coming in. That's only my concern. Our intention was to have that right-of-way dedicated as part of the CSM. And when an additional user comes in out there, that right-of-way would be dedicated at that point.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. We've had a lot of discussion about this topic at a staff level. Our thought is for this initial use, with being the only use on the lot, this could be accommodated with a drive. As a second or additional lots would develop, that's when we'd want to have the certified survey map to split out the lots, dedicate right-of-way, and at that time we would have an agreement that would require improvements be put in at city standards. I think that the comment that Adam had made earlier is that we've recommended to the developer that if they're installing this driveway, that they construct it to those standards. Otherwise, that's something they would be required to do in the future.
I guess I disagree. I would say, why don't the city install that now, do a good job, have it be up to our standards, and, in the long run, whether we do it now or do it in 2015, 16, doesn't really matter. It still needs to be done. Why not, take that off the developer's plate and put it on our plate? It's to our benefit to have a good road in there.
Mr. Gunlaw?
Yeah, it's not city policy that the city builds streets for developers or extends utilities. The developer is responsible to build the street, extend the water main, extend the sanitary sewer,
I got you.
and it's built to city standards. But the city is not in the business of doing that for the developer.
Okay. So it brings up to the developer, why don't you just do it right now versus, because it costs more money, is that the deal?
As far as putting in the road itself,
Up to city standards and just dedicating it back to the city or whatever that happens.
that is our intention, is that we will be putting it into city standards. It only makes sense from our perspective. The question that we're holding off on is the CSM, and that's a timing issue. We'd like to get the project under construction yet this fall, and if we had to wait for the CSM with the timing and the deeds and dedications and the other hoops that have to be taken care of, it would push our schedule back further than what we're looking forward to. The developer has agreed that we would be willing to dedicate this when another project comes forward and the CSM has to be created, but it's not anything that's unusual.
Okay.
If I could, I'd like to add to that. I'm Tim Critter with TJK Design Build, 634 West Main Street, Madison, Wisconsin, and we are designing and proposing this facility for Ag Source here. This is John Boehner with TJK. Just to your comment, we agree. I think long-term it makes sense from a serviceability standpoint for the city to require this and that road to be built to that specification and level, including not just the roadway but the utilities, and it is planned that way. I think by doing a temporary road, and I have to agree with staff on this at this point, because this development is in its sense relying on its ability to be built by itself in the back corner of the property and not fully understanding how it will be parceled up and how the CSM will take shape, and not precluding us from being able to do something different on the front end of the site. Should it be one restaurant, two restaurants, one building? We don't know, and I think everybody is comfortable with the idea of understanding that AgSource could move forward this way, allowing them the ability to move and to redevelop the site, but not precluding us from doing anything different on the front end until the rest of the site is developed. We think it's a very, positive first step in the development of this piece.
Mr. Leonard, did you have some comments?
I just want to say I think it's a neat project. I know we went through this before. I hope you guys had a lot of success. I think it's a good spot for it. Road connections seem well thought out. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the project as well. I like the added brick, and just the changes you made to the aesthetics of the building. I think it fits that area of the city better, and so I want to thank you for doing that as well. Mr. Heinzen, do you have?
I think the building looks very nice as well, and I'd be in favor of the project. I'm curious about the tax issue though, and what's the relationship between AgSource and the property owner?
Mr. Sayre?
My understanding is AgSource is going to lease the property. Correct. So the property owner obviously would take care of that, and AgSource would just be leasing the building and the site from the property owner.
So it's two different categories, but I also do understand that the landowner has reached an agreement on delinquent taxes in respect to payment, which is forthcoming.
Okay, and that was really my question, is whether or not this project would provide us any opportunity to have the property taxes paid. But well, go ahead.
We don't have an ordinance in place, so the property taxes is one of those I wanted to be forthcoming and clear of here's all the stuff out there. But the city does not have an ordinance in place that would say you can't act on anything, you can't do anything. These are paid. We don't have that currently.
but the development will inherently benefit the city in that if the owner requires financing, it will not have a tax lien on it at the time, so they will have to be made whole and paid.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the tax question and the ordinance. There are some municipalities in the area that have a requirement that in order for applications to be submitted, that taxes need to be current and not delinquent. As Mr. Sayer indicated, we don't have that type of ordinance in place. That may be something that the council wants to look at in the future, but that's not something that could be applied to this project.
Mr. Horsfall?
I'll try again. At this time, I'd like to approve the proposed 13,216 square foot office building located at 710 East Verona Avenue with the following conditions as described in the report, plus the stormwater plans be approved by the city engineer.
We have a motion by Mr. Horsfall and
Second.
a second from Mr. Linder. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? And the site plan has been approved. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for approving.
Moving on to our next item on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding an initial review for Epic Systems Corporation to construct 5 office buildings, Campus 4, located at 1979 Milky Way. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. Epic is requesting initial review of 5 office buildings to be known as Campus 4 within their development. Proposed office buildings would contain 478,000 square feet of office space and create an additional 1,580 new offices. The proposed office would be located north of their existing Campus 2. On the screen right now are the 5 office buildings. They're similar in size to what's out there. They range between 300 and 350 offices. That's pretty consistent with what Epic has done lately on the property. The construction would occur in 2 separate phases. 2 of the buildings, buildings 1 and 2, are not located on the parking ramp. The parking ramp, if you recall, was approved in May by the Plan Commission to construct 1,500 underground parking spaces. So building 1 and 2 would not be on that ramp, but buildings 3, 4, and 5 would be located on that ramp. So construction would occur simultaneously with the food service building and the underground parking structure for buildings 1 and 2. And then once those buildings would be constructed at the same time as the ramp. And once the ramp is completed, then buildings 2, 3, and 4 would then be constructed as well. From a bulk standpoint, the proposed buildings would meet all the setback requirements. One thing in the conditional use permit process that the project will require is a special conditional use similar to the food service building for a height exemption, which is allowed through the conditional use process in the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance requires a maximum building height of 45 feet. Building 1 would be 66 feet tall to the highest architectural element. All these heights are to the highest architectural element. Building 2 would be approximately 68 feet. Building 3 would be 72 feet. Building 4 would be 101 feet. And Building 5 would be 92 feet. As part of this project, staff asked Epic to kind of take a look at how visible would this be from the Westridge neighborhood. So here's a picture that I think was taken a few weeks ago, but looking towards the future Campus 4 from the park. This is a future park that would be constructed in the neighborhood, and this is one of the higher points, if not the highest point, in the area. So this is today with the berm that was recently completed, and then with landscaping and trees, the yellow, I guess, off in the distance, and it's yellow because just for representation purposes, but the yellow is what the buildings that would actually be visible and the features that would actually be visible. So it won't be that visible, and to the nearest point from where this picture is taken to the actual campus, it's approximately 2,200 feet. So it's almost, I guess it's almost a half mile. It's a good ways away. So that's one thing we've asked them to take a look at, and they provided this helpful drawing. Another comment we've had from Epic was that when this does go in, there's an existing berm that is planned on the northwest side of this campus, and their intent is to kind of wrap this berm and and bring it down and tie it into the tie it into deep space. So there would be additional berming on the west side of the building as well, which will help reduce the mass and the scale of the height of the buildings as well. Of note too is that right now there's an existing contractor parking lot in that area that sits a little bit higher than the Campus 2 out there. They're actually going to take out 9 to 10 feet of soil in that area to lower the height of those buildings as well, to lower the whole project down and bring it actually probably closer in elevation to the existing campus that's out there. So they're taking some efforts to try to reduce the height of the buildings. But still with that, staff does encourage the Planning Commission to discuss the building heights, most likely specifically buildings 4 and 5. Access to the site would be from the underground parking structure and through tunnels, consistent with what else is on the campus. Conceptual landscaping plans were shown as well. With past EPIC projects, staff has no concerns with the landscaping. They always go above and beyond what is required by the ordinance, and staff is confident that it will be same with this campus as well. Stormwater, staff has reviewed the plans and it was consistent with what has been approved for the food service building. From an architectural standpoint, there are 5 distinct, I guess, buildings within this campus, kind of building upon the farm campus theme of having a theme to it. The theme for this campus 4 is more of the Cambridge Oxford, kind of the old university English look to it. So campus 1, once again, use of high quality materials including slate roofing, limestone. I think it's important to note too on all the drawings that were submitted to you. They're still revising the colors. The colors have not been finalized yet. This is still, I don't want to say a work in progress, but they're still working through some of the details and nuances of the specific of the project itself. But all the buildings would utilize those high quality materials, have a very distinctive look to it. And part of the reason EPIC is doing that, as included in your packet, is they're trying to create a new, unique environment for their employees, and they use that as employee attraction and as employee retention. You know, they compete against some of the biggest technology companies in the world, and it's an attempt to kind of set themselves apart from those other projects. You know, instead of having your typical, I don't want to say boring office environment, they're trying to create that as an engaging place to be and an exciting place to work. So it's part of the reason behind this. You know, obviously you have the farm campus thing. This is more of the Oxford University type thing. They engage their employees in discussions on what they'd like to see out there, and this is something the employees have said, and they use this as an attraction and retention tool. One of the things is EPIC was recently named as having the coolest office environment for all companies in the United States. And I know they take some pride in that because it does help them with their employee attraction and retention. From a city staff standpoint, you know, the reality for us is we look at this as possibly a place that people actually might come visit and take pictures of. You know, a lot of times when I drive out to EPIC and drive down EPIC Lane, I come around the corner there by Farm Campus and I see people out of their car taking pictures of the Farm Campus. I mean, it's kind of unique. You don't have most offices in this country that people, besides probably Apple and Google, but that people would actually drive to and say, let's go visit and look at EPIC. Let's go see what kind of buildings they're designing. And I don't think that was ever the intention behind Farm Campus, but it's almost in essence turned into a destination for people to say, let's go out there and look and see what they've done. And it's because the reality is what they do is quite impressive. So from that standpoint, staff is optimistic that hopefully this does draw more people into the community. It would be a positive thing as well. So with that, staff does encourage the Plan Commission to review the submitted materials and provide feedback to the applicants. I know EPIC has waited patiently here, so I'm sure Steve might be happy to say a few words if he wants to.
Good evening. I'm not going to repeat everything that's been said about the campus so far. I would like to address the building height issue. While Mr. Sayer did give the maximum height, I think it's important to take a look at what is the typical building height, because in this case, the maximum building height, especially on building 4 and 5, are created by unique spires in the building. If you look at the typical building height of building 1, it's 60 feet, building 2 is 59 feet, building 3 is 59 feet, building 4 is in fact 42 feet. not the 100. It's the spire that takes you up to the 100. And quite frankly, the spire is hardly visible from the Westridge neighborhood. It's behind Building 5 and on the west side of Building 4, so it's hardly visible. And then Building 5, which is really very similar to the Smithsonian building in Washington, the typical roof height is 63 feet. That's very comparable to the building height we've had on virtually all of our other buildings on campus. When we're building an office building, the typical floor-to-floor height is about 14 feet. By the time you get structure, a floor, your beams in there, and have enough room in there to get ductwork and so forth. So if you go a 3-story office building and a flat roof, before you even put the flat roof on, you're at 42 feet. If you put any kind of a pitched roof on, let's say you put a 612 or an 812 pitch roof on, you're up in the mid-50s because we have at least a 60-foot wide floor plate on the roof. So some of these buildings do have flat roofs, but most of them do have pitched roofs. So I don't think the height is that severe. If the Building 4 height is an issue because of the spire, we'd certainly consider making adjustments to that spire if that is an issue.
For me personally, it's not much of an issue. I've seen the work you do with Westridge neighborhood, with building the berms and having the community meetings and having everyone on an email chain. We've approved height things like this before for you guys, and once again, I'm okay with it myself. Mr. Heinzen?
Sure. The buildings look spectacular, honestly. There's just no question about it. And I do not have a concern with the height for a couple of reasons. It would be interesting to note if we have churches in town who have, spires that are higher than that height. But as you look at this, and I mean, Jack lives in the neighborhood, so it'll be interesting to hear his view on this, but or closer to it than I do. But if Epic does in fact build a 5th campus, which I understand that a fair amount of property was acquired for that very eventuality, then none of those buildings will be seen. It strikes me if...
That's correct. They'll be below the berm, so if you're in Westridge, you won't be able to see them.
Yeah, so I don't have a concern at all with the height at all. I think it looks spectacular.
Guess you want to hear from me, huh?
Mr. Linder.
I also don't have a problem with it. That's far enough away. That's you're hardly gonna be able to see it all. I think the buildings look great, and I wish you luck with it. I think it's good.
Thank you.
Oh, Mr. Horsfall?
Do we need any?
I was just gonna ask, do we need a motion to approve?
Or is this
No.
just, you're looking for
This is the
feedback?
initial review, right?
Yeah, it actually will take a conditional use permit amendment similar to every other building that's been constructed out there, so we could take the public hearing whenever they submit.
So you'll get to see me in a month.
Oh, great. No, I don't come.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Heinzen?
I'm just curious what the time frame is for when you'd like to start and when you'd like to complete it.
Well, we're going to be starting in early November, starting the excavation for the parking structure and for the food service building. And Jim from Cullen is rip-roaring ready to go on the building. So as soon as they get up, I think the schedule has them start moving into the office buildings in early 2015. So it'll be a pretty fast, another one of our relatively fast projects.
All right, well, thank you very much, and I'm sure we're all looking forward to seeing this project move through and become reality. It's going to be an interesting site and an exciting site to see in Verona.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 10 on our agenda is discussion only on an amendment to the city's zoning ordinance relating to shared parking and maximum parking. Mr. Sayer.
Thank you. Alderperson Diaz has requested feedback from the Plan Commission regarding possible amendments to the city's zoning ordinance to better address shared parking and maximum parking requirements. And in the memo in your packet, I attached the City of Oconomowoc standards that were adopted a couple of years ago, and that's what Mr. Diaz had asked us to kind of take a look at. And specifically what he requested was looking at that shared parking, and also Oconomowoc also has a maximum parking requirement as well. From a staff's perspective, that staff does agree that we should probably take a look at our parking requirements. I'm not sure when the last time it was looked at. Might be a good time to look at it once the downtown plan is completed. There could be some recommendations coming out of that plan. And possibly the Oconomowoc ordinance could be a good starting point for that review. So with that, staff does encourage the Plan Commission to discuss the question or the ideas out there and provide feedback to staff and direction.
And I guess I would also like to invite Alder Diaz, if he'd like to be part of this conversation as well, since he's in attendance tonight. Yeah, go ahead.
Adam pretty much kind of covered what I was getting at. I just had a couple things. I mean, the end goal that I'm looking towards is basically getting adequate parking without paving everything over. So it's eating our cake and also having it too. And so that's kind of what this is about. And I definitely understand what staff is saying about the downtown plan and how this obviously will, this or the downtown plan will impact each other. But I think that parking issues go well beyond downtown, and downtown might need to do something special. So I think this should be considered at the very least in parallel. And that some of this stuff is tough, and the more time we can spend on it, and the sooner we can start it, the more likely we'll actually get done with something and have something good.
Yeah, and I think I agree with everybody in that this is something we definitely should be looking at. We have looked at it in certain developments. The one that comes to mind is over by Gray's Tide House, which we did earlier this year. And if we can get an all-encompassing thing for the city to have park sharing, I think it gives us the chance to really work on one of the big issues we have with the city too, and I think we just don't have enough parking. Mr. Linder?
I'm fully on board with this. I look at like the farm and fleet and whether you use a quarter of that parking lot regularly. I mean, it's just, unfortunately, got the road between. I'm not sure how much you can share with it to the south of that, but just as a, for example, yeah, I'd be definitely for sure more shared parking agreements.
And looking to the downtown, one of the examples I think of is World of Variety. When they're closed, they have the signs up prohibiting the parking. If we can, stop some of that, and especially in the downtown area, maybe provide more parking that's not on street, because I've heard lots of complaints on the on-street parking downtown, especially Wednesday nights and Sundays when the church is being used and Miller's is open. There's just lots of congestion. Left turns, right turns are hard to make. Any other comments, Mr. Horsfall?
Guess how's that work then? If by ordinance we require businesses to have shared parking, or?
Well, I can speak to the Oconomowoc one because I wrote that one when I was there. So how that one worked, it provided flexibility for developers, and I think it put in a distance requirement. So if someone had an agreement with a adjacent property owner, they could enter into that agreement, and you could kind of count the spaces for that. Share the parking, obviously. Regarding existing uses, the city would have to enter in an agreement with the property owner if we wanted to try to make that more of a public lot. And regarding the maximum, the Oconomowoc ordinance was written as, obviously you have certain minimum requirements and you could only exceed the minimum by a certain percentage. That's how that was written. So if, say, 100 spaces are required, you could go up to 125 max. So you had to provide a range between 100 and 125. That's how that was written there.
So then the additional 25 would consider to be shared?
No, that was just the cap on the maximum. The shared parking was more just an option if you had a concentration of businesses. So I mean, the farm and fleet, let's say we had a big development on Hometown Circle. I don't know. I mean, it took up the whole lot. I mean, if you could actually make a connection to the farm and fleet lot, you could possibly use that as shared parking. Obviously, the road is there, that is a poor example, but if the road wasn't there, that'd be a good example of a possible shared parking. So they wouldn't have to provide parking on their property. They could share what's out there existing, and that would count towards their allocation.
So, okay, just sorry.
Oh,
So if Avanti's wanted to share parking with World of Variety as an example, they would have to come up with an agreement? Or the city would encourage that, or how would that, or would it have to be public? I mean, I'm not sure exactly how this ordinance is gonna get, potential ordinance.
Yeah, the intention of the ordinance would be for any kind of redevelopment or new development coming in. Existing uses like that, if the city wanted to explore that, we can do that right now if we wanted to. If we wanted to contact World of Variety and say, we'll pay you X amount of dollars if you open this up for the public, we could do that. And just through an agreement of some type. But the ordinance itself would be applicable to site plan reviews, conditional use permits, and whatnot.
Mr. Heinz?
Sure, I was just say, the ordinance would give us more flexibility in allowing, it gives us more flexibility. So if there's a development where it doesn't have enough parking spaces, we would expressly allow ourselves to allow that developer to use the next door neighbor's parking if those two property owners could reach an agreement as to the use of the use in that fashion.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All right, well, Mr. Linder?
I was gonna say, how soon can we get it to go?
Mr. Sayer?
I'll see what I can do. Due to the volume of items on the agenda, it's my time is kind of limited right now, but I can probably pull something together. I know I did speak with Oconomowoc about their ordinance of how it's been working, and the only comment I got about the maximum parking requirement was that's a slight issue with developers. They begrudgingly agree to do it, but there's usually a lot of whining and attempt at negotiations. The comment I got from them was, look at whatever percentage you put on it and make sure you're comfortable with it, because people are always going to want to go above. So the recommendation I got was, I think there's 25% in the Oconomowoc one, bump it up a little bit. That's what they told me to do. So, but it's something I'll attempt to pull something together so we can maybe talk about something a little more concrete at the next meeting.
And I guess a question for Alder Diaz. Is this before any other committee? Are you bringing it to any other committee at the council level?
No.
I hope this is something that we keep working on it and can bring to the city as soon as possible. I'm with Jack on this one. I think it's a great idea. Any other discussion? All right, well then let's move on to our last agenda item, and discussion on amendments relating to the city's landscaping ordinances. Mr. Sayer.
Sure. Alderman Diaz has requested feedback from the Plan Commission regarding amendments to the city's landscaping requirements, and specific recommendations are attached. To be quite honest, I haven't had a complete time to go through the entire list. I think there are some improvements that could be made within the ordinance. We have, as I get pointed out to me on a regular basis, you still have ash trees listed as an allowable tree in the city, which people don't plant because I won't let them do that, but it's still technically in the ordinance. So I think we need to look at the species. I think we also could probably take a look at the landscaping point requirements and see if that's really working, or is there a better way we could take a look at that. And one of the meetings that we want to have is actually with someone at Epic. Ron Reeder and I have been trying to get this meeting set up, but there's a horticulturist out there who specializes in plantings and is kind of the landscaping guru for Epic. And it's a meeting we want to have just to kind of get her reaction on our ordinances and just get her feedback, because they've offered to do that for us. And due to UGM and just schedules, we haven't had a chance to pull that meeting off. But staff does think we could make some improvements to the ordinance and take a look at it and see if there's a way we can refine it. So we're open to that.
Mr. Diaz, would you like to make any comments?
Yeah, just a few quick things. I mean, like, it's my goals are basically what it just says on the top of the thing in your packet. Some of it is just targeted towards updating things as people get better at understanding landscaping, as the certain kind of drawbacks of certain species like Japanese barberry are discovered. We should be going back and not encouraging these bad things. I also think we should be encouraging a variety of different plants, especially if we're going to be taking away options from people, assuming everything went in like I wanted to. If we take away options, I also think we should add other options to encourage people. I think the more variety you have, the more resilience you have. I mean, like, you know, talking about ash trees, and before that Dutch elm disease, and before that the chestnut blight. The more you don't rely on a monoculture, the better off landscaping will be in the future. And I mean, it's entirely possible it'd be 20, 30, 50, 100 years in the future that people in Verona might see this benefit, so none of us might see it. But I still think it's worth doing. And then, like, under the point system, the way I kind of designed it was just to encourage denser planting that's better for filtering out water. We've seen that in some other developments, even here tonight, where people want, you know, a very dense green screen so they don't see buildings. I think this would help encourage developers to do that. And then I guess the final thing is Verona has the Tree City USA designation, and I think that it would be great if the landscaping ordinances encourage developers to kind of work in that framework.
Again, this is something I'm supportive of. You know, I've had the chance to talk with Mr. Diaz about it beforehand. He's put a lot of really hard and good work into this ordinance, and yeah, I think it's something we should definitely talk about and look into. Is this going to go before any of the other committees as well?
I don't think it has to, but if there was some sort of feedback or something where it should go into another committee, then, I mean, then it would make sense too, but I don't have any plans to do so.
Mr. Linder?
Yeah, this is a pretty significant list here. You did your homework on this. I don't know a lot about this, but I do see the benefits of not having, you know, same kind of tree, like you said, get some disease and wipes out, you know, a section of the development or something and makes it look bad for a while. I'm open to this. Mr. Horsfall?
But it is kind of cool going along the middle school and seeing those trees all turn the same color at the same time. So those are all the same kind. So it's kind of, you know, from a aesthetics point of view, you know, there's some times when it looks kind of cool, but I can see your point though.
Mr. Linder?
I know just that, you know, I don't know what the city does, but like for my street, they plant all the same trees down both sides, even still. So I don't know if that's something that's related to this that might want to be discussed too, because I know the ones we plant in front of ours have the Japanese beetle or whatever it is, tore them down a couple of years ago.
I guess I have thought about that, but I think that's a separate part of the ordinances, and so I'm just trying to work through my list of things one by one.
Any other comments? All right, well, thank you, Luke, for bringing both of these forward. I think they're both great ideas, and hopefully we've moved forward on them. All right, so at this point, a motion to adjourn would be in order. So moved. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we stand adjourned.